starts. Okay, cool. Webinar is being live streamed. Awesome. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world today. My name is Alejandro Ibanez. I'm currently joined by the wonderful Sofia Cardozo from Tip House. Welcome to Leading with a Capital A, the new Aspires program, where I get to introduce you to wonderful friends of mine from every aspect of cybersecurity or like government risk and compliance from around the world. Today, I have brought Sofia here to talk about her transition from being an elementary educator into the world of compliance and cybersecurity. And a little bit of background, Sophia has been one of those wonderful people that has applied their mind, creativity, and overall spirit in every aspect to what I believe is the future of cyber. But enough about me bragging about Sophia. I'll let Sophia brag about Sophia themselves. Sophia, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Sofia Cardozo. I work at Tip House as the program manager for Earned Tip Access, which has to deal more with the fintech world. And so that's definitely where my compliance skills are applied on a day-to-day basis.
Cool. Okay, Sophia, I want to ask really quickly. I know I'm jumping into this and you don't see yourself as a cybersecurity person, but I do. I want to say, how did you make this pivot into compliance for fintech?
Yeah, so I originally was a teacher. I so full disclosure, I live in Colombia in South America. One of the easier jobs to get down here is to become a teacher at an international school, especially being bilingual. That's a super major benefit. And so after I was kind of done with that, I wanted to transition away, was looking for something completely different. And I entered that from as a CS rep. So I was actually initially a customer success representative, and that's where I had to work very much hand in hand for manual verification in the banking aspect. And so for that, that's KYC, that's compliance. And so that kind of sparked that inspiration in a sense to be, curious as to how that all works. What is it that the United States requires from a banking perspective? And since our user base is mostly, hospitality industry workers, so
Mhm.
we get a lot of people who use ITINs. And so, as a US citizen, you have SSNs, social security numbers. However, if you are a person who does not have that, either you are a resident or you are actually undocumented, you can use an ITIN number, which allows you to sign up for a banking provider. And so that's all where it kind of started leading to. And so my my role evolved from CS into sort of managing the product, which was a debit card back in the day. And it just kind of inspired more curiosity as to like, what can we do to improve, this type of process down the road.
Okay, I love that. I know many people aren't familiar with KYC. Do you want to break down the acronym for us?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So KYC is know your customer. And so what that means in the banking world is when you sign up for a banking product, you have to provide your name, your legal address, your social security number, and your date of birth. And so that's what allows a bank to say, oh, yeah, this person doesn't have any debts. They are in good standing, and we can go ahead and open a bank account for them. Um, Legal address is the trickiest component, I would say, for know your customer. Most people think that that's where they currently live in the here and now, and it's surprising because it's actually whatever your
ID, right?
identification has on it. Yeah, so your ID, your driver's license, your state ID, that is what is associated to you for the United States government and for banking systems. And so that's always one of those things where you're like, oh, it's a point of friction. How can I improve this? And so all of that um, also starts kind of growing the program into how can we avoid people falling into that know your customer kind of manual verification where they have to then submit a document to prove what their legal address actually is.
So, okay, I love that too, especially since like KYC is a big part of it. And KYC now, compliance and risk management pretty much falls under cyber. Like we went out of the risk org to the point where it now falls under us for a majority of our jobs.
Mhm.
How do you often balance the needs of like security and compliance with the product features of like what you're building out and how you're building out a better like customer service program?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I mean, a lot of it is based on, especially in the fintech realm, a lot of it is based on whatever the parameters that a bank sets. And so making sure that you're kind of going hand in hand with that and staying like up to date as much as possible with what does the bank offer? What does the bank definitely not allow? What do they allow? All of that can definitely start to evolve the program. And a lot of people see banks as like, it's my major blocker. But in reality, I think they're the ones that can definitely open up the different doors because if you ask, it's better to ask. And
Always.
so as yeah, from a compliance perspective, it's always better to ask, especially with banks, and not ask for forgiveness later, just because they're banks. It's like the top dog, and asking them for like ideas or like how to evolve the program. That's really where you can see things expanding in the product that you want to see grow.
Oh, of course. Oh, I love that. Um, can I ask, what do you find most rewarding about your job right now? And like, what's like the most rewarding part? What's a little difficult? Like, talk to me about your like day to day.
The wins for the end user. That's where I know that things are going, even if you hit a speed bump, so to speak, even if you hit a speed bump, at the end of the day, there's someone that's actually having a good experience. There's someone who's actually improving, um, having the product. And you'll hear about it if you do surveys or outbound communication. Sometimes people will respond and they will let you know, oh no, actually, this has allowed me to apply for an apartment. And that I think is so cool, to see like, oh, this product, even though something major might have happened, we want to make sure that the end user isn't
Impact.
intensely impacted. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Can I ask Sophia, you're a very successful program manager, especially for being on a lean team and having to build a program of your size and scale. Usually that's like 5 to 10 people at a different company. What skills went into preparing you for this? Like kind of like if anything transferred over from elementary education or even education in general, like let's get into it.
Oh, yes. Education, I mean, it truly helped me. There's a couple of components that have helped me in the current role that I'm in. The first is as a teacher, you have to be organized. A disorganized teacher just means that the students aren't going to get the most out of whatever they're learning at that time. So being very educated or being very knowledgeable as to like what the plan is for that week ahead of time helps kind of set those boundaries for that week and knowing like this is what I need to dedicate time to. And then after that, then I can kind of jump into this next component that is tied into that first one. So understanding like how it all maps,
Hmm.
from an educator's standpoint, that's definitely being applied in my day to day. Google Sheets, surprisingly. So my background in education comes mostly from the fact that my degree in college was in biology, in organismal and ecological biology.
Oh,
And my fish class was the one who trained me on how to use Excel. And so now with Excel, like it's my best friend. I never thought that looking at spreadsheets would be so much fun. But in my day to day, like spreadsheets end up being such a lifesaver because you're looking at cold, hard facts and data. And that to me is really exciting. And so, especially with major projects and when it is cross departmental, using Gantt charts, that's been a very, um, wonderful thing to use. I would also say, like, when I'm looking to comparisons for hiring or different platforms, I love using Matrix, like
oh yeah.
a matrix for that hiring matrix, just because it allows you to again, look at cold hard facts and not like gut feeling or that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's better to look at it more from like a quantitative perspective than a qualitative perspective.
Always, and I think that this goes into like part of our program here at the Mike Leads and Expires, like the ABC program that we have running through Mike. We're always talking about metrics and looking at like hard data. We train our apprentices in like SOC work, and a lot of SOC work is just literally looking at logs, exporting those logs into an Excel sheet and being like, can you trace somebody through this program? Can you go through and like review, analyze, and analyze and apply quantitative reasoning or qualitative reasoning to, hey, this right here is going to cause a customer friction. This is going to cause a bad experience. This is going to cause like, because they're going to feel the lag time here. This like increase in like performance here is going to feel like, yeah. No, that part I totally agree on. And I love that like people don't think of like, oh, you went from biology and looking at cold hard data. How does that apply to tech? Well, here you go.
Mhm.
It's yeah. Oh, can I ask really quickly, if you could redo your program management career, how would you start again?
Oh gosh, probably just getting more of a better understanding of big picture. Like, how do actual fintechs work? What works for them? What doesn't work for them? Like, what can I do to make sure that we don't fall into the same pitfalls that they've seen as well? And so that kind of stuff, probably. But to be honest, I like how I kind of
You're like,
started
I did it
my
right.
career. No, no, I mean, I didn't do it right, but I really like it because my background is so diverse and like the different things that I've done for work in the past, that to be able to come into this and be like, oh, I can apply. I mean, lesson plan knowledge definitely is transferred into standard operating procedure documents that I made for when we were training our current customer success team, which has grown to 13. I mean, we started with two, three, and now it's 13. And it's just grown. And so to make sure that we're able to pass that information on and make sure that we don't have things like a broken telephone, so to speak,
Oh, yeah.
with newer hires, like that all is applied. And so I like that I've been able to kind of carve that out, so to speak.
Let's double tap into that because you did. I remember when I first met you, you had a team of you were a small team. You were like 3 to 4 people. How did you build that into like a legacy and like building repeatable SOPs and like making sure that like how do you say this? One of the biggest threats in cyber is sometimes rogue actor, internal threat,
Mhm.
was in the org. How did you make sure that you weren't handing off information to a rogue actor when building off?
That is an excellent question. So we have actually hired our CS team here in Colombia, and probably 90% of them were recommended personally to us by other people in this area. And so that really allows for more of like a close-knit team. And
Mm-hmm.
then we meet with them once a month. And we're just trying to like establish more of like a a culture where they can rely on us, we can rely on them, making sure that we are still keeping a close eye on what they do, and that they're following whatever we've established. They also go through a very rigorous kind of training program as they're starting with us. And I like what we've been doing so far. I'm sure that there's ways to evolve it down the road, but so far, I mean, we've had very positive results with that.
Oh, easy. So you, background checks, talking, world of action. That I'm the same way when I do a CS build too. I have to
Mhm,
like I pull from my past. I'm like, I know I can trust you. We can build the foundation together, and from there we'll build up.
mhm.
Oh, let's talk about some inspiration and some advice. Um, Compliance is sometimes viewed by technical teams as just checking the box and being very much like another like you're making a requirement. You don't under no me entiendes la vida. You don't get my life. Very teenager. Like I'm not my engineering team knows I'm just it's like a joke with them. But how do you overcome the misconception and show like the true value of like, hey, we're here, these rules exist for a reason. Here's why we're putting guardrails up, or here's we're not trying to be a business blocker. How do you like demonstrate that in your org?
I think they end up seeing it when something happens or with the success that we've seen with our end user. I think that that's very clearly demonstrated is, hey, if we don't do something to the highest compliance that we can be, then we're going to have to come back and it's going to bite us in the butt essentially. And so I think that that's one of those first components, to be honest, is wait for it in a sense, although I never want that ever to happen, but it's kind of like a, if we're not on top of it, then it is going to kind of come back. And so but I think, our team, everyone in our company goes through compliance training from the SDRs all the way up to the execs. And so I think that's something that also kind of breathes life into understanding that compliance is a priority. And that's
Oh
basically how
yeah.
we, yeah.
Especially you build a culture of it. You have to build a culture of it to make sure that people like don't there will always be the engineer that fights you on it, but building a culture that make everybody understand like, hey, here's what we're doing. Um, Speaking of compliance, ironically enough, I was gonna ask, I skipped a question by mistake that I want to come back and double tap to. Do you have any certifications, Sophia? Or like did you like how did your I know you have the hard skills from education, like biology. Is there any soft skills or any sort of like industry certs that you were focusing on in the time being?
Not current certs. I mean, outside of like the compliance certifications, things in that regard. A lot of it is, Reddit. I
You can
mean,
be real. You can be super real
it's
on that one.
I mean, it's forums, places where similar fields are happening and just trying to stay up to date in that context. Um, right now, my role is a lot of pivoting and understanding different concepts all on a dime. And so it makes it hard to say, oh, I'm going to take time and learn more outside of that. But, there's definitely a lot of like YouTube videos, YouTube channels that help in that context. But I am always willing to learn. I mean, I got a book that I was told would be great for me to read, and so in that sense, I just that's where I need to work on improving is my education to see like how high can I take this
Oh,
essentially.
I love that. Okay. So, because you mentioned Gantt charts as well, I'm gonna do a shout out to Microsoft Project real quick. May it rest in peace. That program was my life for the longest time. Um, with this too, what advice would you give to somebody who feels intimidated by the complex regulation and frameworks that we usually operate in? Like we operate within NIST, we operate within financial regulatory frameworks, we jump in and out, and like to you and I can be like, hey, KYC, blah blah, insert this, or a failure of AML, and we get it. How would you? What step would you tell somebody who's like, hey, I want to get into this field, but I look at all these acronyms, I'm like, ah.
It's basically like, how when you start a board game and they're like, oh, let's read the instructions. You're not going to understand the board game as you're reading the instructions. You're going to understand it as you're playing the game and going through it. And so uh, for me, I would just say jump into it. When you're in it, that's how you start learning and that's how you start applying it day to day with compliance, with knowing your customer, with the like this type of tech world. It's tough to say I'm going to be super prepared for my role. I think a lot of it is learning as you go and improving and absorbing that information as you go, essentially.
Oh, no, I completely agree on that part. And when you fill out your first SARS report, when you're filling out your first like, hey, we have like fraudulent transaction, like what do we do? How do we prevent it? Um, I love that. And I feel like I would give that same advice to like little me who was so like, I don't understand what AML means yet, or like what is the true like am I doing it correct? I'd be like, no, just once you get a couple round like laps around the track, suddenly you're like, oh, I know this game. Do 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 do
Mhm.
do do. And then you go to conferences, you keep connected and you keep pushing forward. Let's do advice. We did the compliance one. We talked about intimidation. How do you keep your energy? Like one, I'll say this. a lot of compliance people like ourselves face burnout, like easily. We get burnt out because we're usually the dumping ground for a lot of either complaints or we're filtering a lot of the negativity of our programs out. Especially in cybersecurity, we get the whole if you're successful, it's silent and no one's looking at you, but when stuff is breaking, suddenly like all eyes are on you. How do you keep yourself in like a positive mindset or like what do you do to keep yourself going?
Oh, that's a great question. So I just to kind of take back, I did a survey to kind of get some feedback off of our one of our products, and a lot of it was not positive. But then if you look for the positive ones, the people that actually take the time, because that's the other thing, the people who complain are the loudest. And that's who you're probably going to hear from 90% of the time. But the people who took the time to say something positive, that's what kind of feeds you for the rest of the year in a way. Um, there's people who are just so appreciative. They're excited that there's something that's helping them. They're excited that, hey, if I reach out, I get a response really quickly back, which is not the same that happens with other you know, fintech orgs or something to that effect. So I think a lot of the time too, I have to consider, some people are just okay. And they're okay because they're just using the product and it's working for them. They don't feel the need to say, oh, I need to say something positive or negative about it. They're just using it. And so that's where data again kind of comes back into the forefront of, oh, what are we seeing? Like cold hard facts. What are we seeing from our product? And that I think is also really good to be seeing on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis.
Yes. And then I'm gonna give you this one as a preface of I always ask all my guests at this point. Think about one word that you are following
Mm.
for the year. Usually, like I gave a different word each time. I forget which one I gave on the last call, but I think right now my word has changed to persistence, where that's my yearly, especially in this worldview right now. My goal is persistence. But think about it, ruminate on it, and feel about it. I'm gonna go through a couple extra questions as well and say like, one, where do you see like the future of compliance going in the age of AI and cybersecurity? Like, our programs are now having to integrate all these new models and quickly, and like, how do you balance the need for innovation with the need for one, product safety, and two, customer success?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, yeah, so I would say, hold on, let me
You
take
can
a
take your
first
time. I'll
response.
babble.
Yeah,
I'll,
yeah.
I can babble on that one. For like with AI, like you've seen me in my current worldview where like we're coming from regulations and I was waiting for regulators first to come out and say like, what is PCI going to say about it? What is NIST going to say about it? What is this going to say about it? And now I have moved away from that and be like, okay, how can we integrate it in workflows that are safe and let those run through, and then we'll worry about workflows that are a little more critical later, and then start moving towards like just automating little by little, day by day. That's been my perspective on it. I'm not necessarily anti AI. I'm just not pro AI in a lot of workflows. Um,
Yeah, I would say I think I am at least the same. You know, it's I like keeping a close eye on kind of what's happening, what's occurring. And so if we are to apply AI to things that can directly, quickly impact our end user, it always makes me very nervous. I think that's kind of the answer that, yeah, I think that's mostly the answer that I wanted to give there. With AI, you start losing track, you lose visibility, I want to say, into what context is the AI pulling from? What do they like? If you don't put in the correct query, it can kind of break the whole mechanism too. And so you have to know how to ask the correct question to give you the workflow that you want to input into your own system. So that's another thing too with AI that always makes me a bit hesitant to say,
Okay.
yes, let's apply it and hope for the best. But I think, nowadays we are seeing AI being more integrated with like compliance software. And, you know, I think it's still maintaining a close eye, making sure that the first couple of months that is working correctly in the way that is intended for the end result. And so that's, yeah,
Oh,
again, just keeping a close eye on it.
yeah. No, I definitely agree on that one too. Keeping a close eye on it and being aware, because this is how we're getting like the Canada case where that company got sued because their AI chatbot promised a lower price and they did stuff like that. I'm trying to think about what else we're doing. We've talked about compliance, we talked about planning. What's the biggest mistake you see newcomers make when they enter your field or when they enter your flow? Because I know that we're kind of like we're the startup, all hands on deck, many hats every day. We bounce between security, compliance, ops, all the stuff. How do you feel if you had to prepare somebody? How would you prepare them not to make a mistake when they're entering our flows?
Hmm. I mean, follow the standard operating procedure, shadow someone. I think that's super important. Shadowing other CS reps who are knowledgeable, shadow whoever your role is more closely aligned to, just to see like how do they do things, what is the culture in the different components. That's kind of what I would say. And never be worried about asking a question, just because that I think can really be a blocker for a lot of people. Some people might feel like, oh, if I ask something,
I'm gonna send down.
even if it's like a month down the road, people might think like, oh, how do they not already know this? But it's just better to ask and clarify and then be able to take the next step that you need to take,
Oh
essentially.
yeah, the first 90 days I'm on a job, I am the most annoying person. Like I sit back and observe, but then I'm like, why, what, who, when, where, or
Mhm.
like, what is this going for? What flow is this doing? I like to tell people when I jump on a new job, I'm like a Roomba. I'm gonna start bumping into things, but eventually I'll find my way home. But like, you have to let me explore the room and bump into things a couple times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's definitely a lot of, that's the mindset that we have, at least is make mistakes. It's fine to make mistakes because ideally you're learning from them. The other thing too is a to-do list, like a checklist. That's definitely what we have to be like, hey, in order to set up for success, go through this. Go through every aspect of it. It can legitimately even understanding how to work Slack, something as basic as, hey, I'm coming in, I'm brand new, I've never used Slack. There's a huge
Learning
wealth of
curve.
knowledge on there. And yeah, there's a learning curve, absolutely. But then like Slack has YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. And if you're like me and you're like, I'm gonna watch it on 2.0 or like two speed, um, that then that works, and so use the tools that even the software has on hand for you. That's super important. And try and figure out your niche too. Like I came in and I realized, oh my gosh, we're not using like 50% of a tool that we have that I think would be great to expand on. And now like we have people working in different roles within that software to really grow from it. So I think that's definitely a lot of, especially with startups, you can find different areas to be creative and to grow in.
Totally. And I think I actually want to touch on that too because you and I are always in roles where we typically get less than what we give out, where we leave behind legacies of SOPs and ops. Um, let me not, I'm trying to make sure this doesn't sound negative. Um, do you ever get discouraged by not having ops, or do you see it more like a blank canvas of you get to create more?
Oh, a blank canvas and I can create more. I mean, if I can lay the groundwork for something and then see it blossom into something that's truly benefiting the company, that's so much fun. That also gives me work satisfaction outside of the end user is being able to say, oh my gosh, this would be so cool to like have on hand. And if we have this, then even better. And it's going to help our company in the long term. It's going to, you know, that that I think is more of a blank canvas. And I love that from a creative standpoint for sure.
Same. I like to say that like at least a lot of my friends, and I'll gladly add you into this group. We leave legacies behind at our companies. We typically are the ones who end up building pillars of like whether it's cultural, um, technical, or other items. Like boom. And I want to say one thing I admire about you is that we try to encourage this in the program, but you lead not necessarily from a position of authority, but from a position of like culture and a position of like I'm building a culture. Um, how have you? I'm trying to make sure I ask this question well. How do you do that? Like, what inspires you to lead? Not from like, hey, I am a manager, but like from like, here's what I'm building.
Oh, I for me it's more I want to come to work and enjoy it. And I know other people want to do the same. I think that's from a very empathetic standpoint. I think if things are chugging along in the way that they need to be, I'm super excited to see that. And I'm excited to kind of show up every single day. When things don't flow accordingly, that's when you're like, okay, how do I pivot? Because again, from an educator standpoint, you can't teach one thing to a kid and expect that all 30 of the kids are going to understand it through that one method. Like
Yup.
dividing fractions can be taught like three different ways. And
Don't get me
and
started on that
that's
new math. You know how I feel about that new.
but that's legitimately, how I feel, at least from a managerial standpoint, is we can be creative with the team and also allow them to lead. So I love giving people like, hey, here's a project and see how they do and
Mhm.
see where were their strong suits and where they need a little bit more reinforcement on. And that's how I know like, okay, this person would be great here. Um, and that I like my role has now pivoted away from that. Which is like it's nice because I don't have the bandwidth for that, but it's kind of a bummer because it's again that kind of creativeness of, oh, I would love to see like what they end up doing down the road.
Same. And I like to say like usually the three things I think the students have heard me say this a lot of time. I'm like, look, it's either you build functions, you support people, and then you have operations. And like functions are like the work that needs to happen. Then you build people who support those functions, and then the operations like how does the flow of information come in and out. And I'm like, usually it's when you're building a system, it's one of those three issues of like is either the function didn't happen correctly and the process is incorrect, or is did you have the right people supporting the functions, or did like something go wrong with the operation that like information's not passing through this function correctly. And
Mhm.
oftentimes I like to say it's not a person issue. People like to blame a person and be like, hey, it's a person. I'm like, no, it's probably just a broken process where something's not being handed off and you have to just double tap into it and go through it and be like, hey,
Yeah.
we push.
O- Or or you didn't set up the person for
Like
success too.
that.
Like there was a component and data point information that just wasn't passed along. And so that person wasn't set up from the very beginning. That's definitely another thing that I'm always thinking of is again from board games. It's just you always have to kind of strategize ahead of time.
That's true. Actually, the other part we'll tap into, I can't believe I didn't ask a question, but we both hire a lot. We hire for a lot of folks left and right. Um, I give the analogy of an accountability dial is when I hire, I have like a level 1 through 5 person where like level 1 is like they just need to be told what to do all the time to a level 5 where they're fully autonomous type of thing. I'm like, oh, I can give you a full system, broken or not broken, and you'll figure it out at the end of the day. What do you look for when you're hiring like new career green people into like the roles, the fields, into our compliance programs, or even in CS, or what were you looking for back then when building this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is definitely like basics. Like, okay, how good are they with technology? I mean, something as simple as that of, okay, how good are you at typing? Because since our CS team, for example, is a chat first, I do a words per minute test in the interview. And
You're killing these balls. You're killing me.
I mean, that's it's a very low barrier. They don't have to get to my score.
500 words per minute, miss.
No, I wish. I'm not that fast. I am fast for for me.
It depends
But
what
I'm
I'm
not that
slacking on.
fast.
If it's good cheese man, oh yeah, I am up
There
there
you
at
go. There you
450
go.
whiskey day. Enter.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But and then like it's just, if they have restaurant experience, because in hospitality industry, they'll be able to empathize and connect more too with our end user. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like, do they have education? How well do they speak English? Because we're hiring in Colombia for the CS team, and so a lot of that is definitely taken um, into context. And then the other thing too is their personality. Like, how do they engage when you're talking to them? Like, are they very dry, very monotone, or are they engaging and interested and will be concerned, but it won't devastate their world when they get someone upset back at them? Because, I mean, as CS folk, you are going to get people upset back at you. And it's just going to happen. And so it's more of like, okay, how are you going to confront that and engage with that and be able to like continue past that?
Oh, that's true. Um, I love that. Um, I guess to close, we're almost at time, so I want to be mindful of it. But I'm gonna come back to that word if you're still thinking about it, of like the word of the year. What's some of the best career advice that you've received that you feel is applicable to compliance, cybersecurity, and like kind of that like our world?
Uh, hmm. Ooh, yes. Hold on. Now I gotta think of like how I want to say this. Don't sell yourself short.
Okay.
Don't sell yourself short. That I think has been like the best advice I've gotten. Um, Sometimes we're really good to be like, oh yeah, I did this, or you know, oh yes, I have something to say, but like don't sell yourself short. Be assertive with who you are in the context of your role. I think that helps people understand like, oh, this person understands, is knowledgeable, they're interested in this line of work, they're not just here because it's 9 to 5.
Yeah,
They are interested, they want to engage. And so yeah, I would say don't sell yourself short.
I agree. I think that's a good one too, especially when imposter syndrome, people of color, we face it at like 10x the rate. And I laugh because I'll get into those times. Even yesterday, I think you and I had talked prior this week where I'm like, oh, I just don't feel good. Like, I'm like, how do I do this? And we both laugh because we're like, I'll think of other people in our field. I'm like, actually, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of places where you're okay to like grow and be yourself. And so when you find that niche, it's awesome. I really like it, I would say.
Oh, same. Especially like what I try to do, and I think I haven't said this to the students this year yet, but for those of us who are new, I like to channel people who I think would do well in that situation when I'm in a situation I'm uncomfortable with. So if I'm having like a really hard compliance CS case, I'm like, let me channel Sofia and her organization. Let me this is like, I always try to tell people, I'm like, it's not like a Buddha thing. It's just like, how would you handle this? Cause I'm like, you're probably better at it than I am. I'm like, you're the phone a friend I would call if I'm having I don't know what to do. Oh, the other one is
Oh
like
yeah.
Eunice. Yeah, I tell Eunice, I'm like, I try to channel you sometimes when I get into like the whole this is not my job. Like her favorite line to me to tell me is like, that's not your job. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you're right. Oh, like you're right. This technically wouldn't be a purview of this scope or like handling that. I'm like, you're right. Let me not beat myself up about it because she'll go in on me sometimes because she's like, you are the hardest on yourself when you're trying a new skill. And I'm like, you are completely correct about that one. And then she's like, watch, in 2 years, you're going to be teaching me how to do it. I'm like, you're right. Let me take a step back and like go
Mhm.
through that. And I think that's the best career advice I've gotten is try to channel someone who you think would do well and act as them in that like piece of career. Um, okay, so to close out then, Sophia, what I'll do is I'll say two things. One will be, what's one myth about compliance that you want to bust right now? That you like that's just not true. Or if you have any shade to throw, I give everybody a platform of 5 minutes. This is where the PR trained ones are like, that's a great question, and move on. And the non-PR trained ones are like, here's what it is. Um, the last advice we got for this one with the shade was our pen tester said he didn't like SOC 2 because he didn't believe it was some people are treating it like a framework when it or treating it like a valid security framework when it's more of a compliance framework. And I think that's a good misinterpretation that happens of like technically SOC 2 is not a passing score. It's we are telling you what we're telling you and we're not lying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the biggest myth with compliance is probably that it's not important, but it is. Like, be, I think some people might want to bypass certain aspects of compliance. And I think, again, like I said, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. And so it's always just better to say, okay, what's the minimum compliance like rating that I need to have for this and go with that. And to be honest, it's probably not going to be as intense as you thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
And so I would always just say, it's again, just follow whatever is kind of being established by whatever like KYB, KYC software you're using, whatever the bank says, especially in the fintech world, just because why mess around with it, to be honest?
It's never worth
Why
it.
rock the boat?
It's never
Yeah.
worth it. I'm telling you. And
No.
it feeds into the biggest stereotype of cybersecurity right now, too, where cybersecurity budgets are often the most bloated right after a breach.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we can go through this part again and again. I can name how many companies have gone through this for like, and I can say, like, you remember the Target scandal of 2019? Target had to redo their entire payment system because they were
Mm,
leaking PII, they were leaking credit card numbers all across, and it became a whole like, it was right before it was on Black Friday too. They were the biggest
mm,
vendor for Black Friday, and they leaked all, like, yeah, they would have spent an ounce of what they spent post that incident if they would have just followed the MVP of compliance for that one.
yeah. Yeah. Just do it
Uh,
right the first time and grow from there instead of having to
retro.
react to it down the
Yeah.
down the line.
And for those of you who want a framework for this part, because I know I'm gonna get asked this in the Discord later, I recommend the fair risk assessment framework for this. I'm actually redoing my company's fair risk assessment right now for our SOC 2. And Sophia will be receiving a copy of that SOC 2 once that report is published.
Love to see
um,
it.
Always. Sophia, I always give our participants and our panelists a chance to ask me any questions they want. It's usually a go or no go or anything like that. If you have any questions for us, feel free to ask the community, or if you have any advice you want to give the community as well, this is your time. If not, I turn it back around on you and say, what's the word of the day that you've been thinking of?
Stability.
Oh,
Right. Stability and consistency. Yeah, that's kind of been my for 2026, not just the day or the week or the month. It's kind of been 2026. Would love to see consistency or stability. I think that would be the best thing. In the startup world, you have to wear many hats. You have to pivot very quickly. And so when that happens, you know that you're not bored. Like that's an exciting component I would say about a startup is you're probably never going to be bored. You might be a little bit stressed,
a little.
but a little.
A
Um,
little.
but but at the same time, it is really not boring, and that's where you're like, oh, how can I shine? Where can I be creative to improve different things? And so when you get a day, a week that is consistent, it's a lot of it's it's a lot of fun because then you can dedicate to growth instead of how can I keep things stable. And I that's kind of my 2026 has been.
Consistency.
Yeah.
I hope to join you on that one. I hope to honor that word with you, and I hope the next couple of months I can remain consistent on that part. Yeah.
Oh
Uh,
no, it's not currently consistent. That's what I'm aiming towards. That's my if I keep saying it, it'll eventually get there.
oh, I love that. That's actually a good word. Oh, I'm adding that one to my list. That's my next one for myself too. I'm gonna make that my next monthly one. So join me this month Aspires, and I try to be more consistent and honor Sophia's word, and I'll take that as part of my own. And I now transition away from resiliency to consistency. For reminders of our general community, we have our conference at the end of the month. If you haven't had a chance to buy tickets, they're still on sale now. Please join us. It's a fun conference in Dallas where we join, we have community, we do everything from workshops down to nightly community building. Karaoke is always fun. We do a lot actually. Um, Make sure you check out the link in the bio. Ralph, I'll have you help me out with that one. Just Mike.org and feel free to purchase. I'm trying to think about what else. I think that's it for community announcements. We have some job postings. Feel free to look them out. Feel free to look them up and check them out. If you want to, oh, Sophia, can they find you? On LinkedIn? Where do you want to plug in your socials?
Yeah, LinkedIn. That's probably the better bet. That's where I'm constantly, or I'm not constantly posting, but that's where I'll just repost things that are happening with my company, and there. And then Instagram, I mean, you can add me if you're more curious outside of LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is just, I'm just
Oh, perfect. Then,
reposting. And then my Instagram is going to be way more about birds because I live in Colombia, which is the most biodiverse country in the world, and insects and trips that I have in this area.
oh, I love that. Okay, Aspires, you have your mission today is one, find Sophia on LinkedIn. She'll be posting job opportunities when she can, and she'll be posting stuff about her company. And she has an interesting background. I'm glad you guys got to join me today for an hour with my friends. I'm always fun. Next month, I believe we have Elise McGowan. So she'll be a fun one. She's currently, I think, she is. I forgot where her new role is, but she's doing stuff with FedRep. So we'll be talking about another